So here they come, being headed out of the assembly area by Steve Foden. And a great mix of liveries out there, making it pretty easy to identify the two, to identify each drive. You can see the two Red Line Racing cars there together. That's Dad ahead of son, Jason Greatrex, who had a great race earlier, making his way up to 11th from the back of the grid, ahead of his son Callum, racing here on Father's Day in the UK. Is Jason Greatrex. I think that's the only father and son duo out there. Real old family atmosphere in the Mazda paddock. A lot of drivers that have been around Mazda paddocks for a long time. And then there's newcomers too. Steve Foden, who's been about for the last half decade or so, took his first win earlier on today, and he'll be looking to replicate it. He likes the wet conditions. Don't think it's quite as wet as earlier, but still pretty tricky out there. Alongside him, Brian Trott, who competes also in the Masters category for drivers over the age, I think it's on 45. Row 2, Sebastian Fischer returning this weekend to the BRSCC Championship. Starts alongside Oliver Allwood. Let's take a look at that grid then. So it's Steve Foden and Brian Trott on row 1. On row 2, Sebastian Fischer and Oliver Allwood. Row 3 sees Oliver Graham and Luke Pullin. Row 4 for Matt Pollard and Kevin Dengate. On row 5, Fraser Fenwick and Adam Craig, with the Grey Trexes on row 6, Jason and Callum. On row 7, Sam Moody and Zach Oates, with on row 8, George King and Kian Donaldson. The 9th row for Jack Brewer and Paul Bateman, and on row 10, Bill Taylor and Tim Dorr. Row 11, Stuart Simmons and Richard Wooten, and on row 12, Brad Jones and Nick Ledoyen. The 13th row sees Paul King line up alongside Christopher Ginn, and on row 14, Bo Parry and Alan Hawkins. The 15th row for Michael Pearce and Graham Rumsey, and on row 16, Bryn Griffiths and Thomas Mallet. Row 17 for Ollie Walden and Jonathan Fieldsend. Row 18 for Rob Mugglestone and Richard Bartlett. The 19th row sees Toby Owen and Michael Green, and due to line up on row 20, Scott Leach and Aston Wigley, who didn't finish the race earlier on. So full grid, 40 cars. If anyone doesn't make it out there, there are reserves waiting. We had 47 cars qualify yesterday. A great entry here at Silverstone for the BRSCC Mazda MX-5 Championship, which after this race will continue at Anglesey next month in July, and then Snetterton at the end of the month, Cadwell Park in August, Donington Park in September, and Brands Hatch at the Formula Ford Festival in October to conclude their season. 3 races a weekend for the MX-5 Championship. One of the best supported single make categories in all of British motorsport, and it provided, we've seen this weekend, intense door-to-door racing in every single race, and certainly this weekend's been no different despite the tricky conditions. Coming here to Silverstone, Jack Brewer was the championship leader, 93. You see him in your shot there, the Tucker Motorsport car. There he is. You can see a big dent in the door from races early on, so I don't think he leads the championship anymore, although his competitors haven't done particularly well either. Michael Nibbs, I don't think actually raced in race 2 after problems in race 1. Steve Foden didn't have a good race 1 but then won race 2. Fraser Fenwick, who was 4th, won race 1 but then didn't have a good second race. And so goes on. Jason Greatrex, he was 5th in the championship. He retired in race 1. I guess Oliver Allwood is one driver who's had 2 decent races. He was 7th in the championship. So it's been a real mix-up this weekend. Ryan Trott, and Sebastian Fischer, 2 drivers that have been on the podium in both races. In Fischer's case was an Ackcroft, and as we heard earlier from Brian Trott, didn't have a good day there. So the championship really mixed up this year, even though we're only on the second meeting of 8 of the season. It looks wide open, which is absolutely great to see. There's so many people battling for race wins. We saw 3 wins for Brewer at Crop, but that didn't really tell the story. He was absolutely under pressure there. And then we've had 2 new winners today. Can we make it 3 different winners in 3 races? Well, it's certainly a possibility with a number of drivers. Right with Steve Foden, but Foden showed great pace in the earlier one. Look out for Zach Oates. He's set the fastest lap in both races. He starts a bit further down the grid though, I think. He might be with withdrawal from the race by the looks of it. He should have started in row 7. Don't think he's there, so perhaps we won't be looking out for him. Anyway, the race is about to get underway. The red lights go out, and the third race of the weekend, the 6th round of the championship for the BRSCC Mazda MX-5 Championship, gets underway then and heads down towards Copse Corner for the first time. Who's made the best start? Who will get down to Beckett's in the lead? Lots of questions to be answered. Well, they all turn their way through Copse okay, I think. Look at the field, it's absolutely manic. There's so many cars, it's great to see it. It's Foden that heads the way. In second is Brian Trott, and third Sebastian Fisher as they started. Fourth is Oliver Allwood. Fifth up the inside there. Was that Luke Pullen? I think he's got himself ahead of Oliver Graham at the start. And the rest of the field turn their way through the Beckett's hairpin and onto the Wellington straight, back onto the Grand Prix circuit through the cut-off. The cut through there they go, and Foden feeling the need to just put his car in the middle of the road from Brian Trott, trying to keep him behind. How much progress can Jack Brewer make after his incident earlier? Here's Paul Bateman, number 4. We haven't spoken much about him today. He's made a good start here in the Les Bateman Motors car. They turn then out of Luffield Corner with Foden and Trott getting away from Sebastian Fisher in third. Then in fourth is Oliver Allwood, and then the rest, a lot of them coming 2 by 2, including Adam Craig there, 29, who was on the inside line through Woodcote Corner, as they complete lap 1 of this 20-minute motor race. Steve Foden led by 4 tenths from Brian Trott. In third is Sebastian Fisher. 4th, Oliver Allwood. 5th was Oliver Graham. 6th, Fraser Fenwick. He made a good start. Matt Pollard 7th. 8th, Luke Pullen lost positions in the end. 9th for Callum Greatrex, and 10th, Kevin Dengate. Here come the cars into Beckett's. On the inside line, Fraser Fenwick goes up the inside there of Oliver Graham, and they're wheel to wheel. Fenwick, the winner from race 1, trying to progress after race 2 didn't go too well at all for him. So he's coming through from 9th on the grid. But Steve Foden trying to pull away here, trying to make it 2 wins in a day. Up the inside there, 55, that's Matt Pollard, who was involved in that last lap incident at Copse in race 1. He's just ahead of Fraser Fenwick now. So he's got past Fenwick, his teammate, although Fenwick fights back on the inside line through Luffield. Foden and Trott getting away from Sebastian Fisher in third. You can see that much tighter line being taken by Fraser Fenwick, who's there now behind Matt Pollard, who's coming on to terms with Oliver Graham, who sits there now in 6th position. In 5th position still even. Into Copse they turn. So there is Graham in 24, just behind Oliver Allwood. Multiple winner in the category in the past. Yet to win this season. He has been on the podium a few times though. Fastest lap for Matt Pollard, 55 in 6th, 76.737. The first flying lap is best for him. There's Oliver Allwood coming under further and further pressure for Oliver Graham, who's having a good run here in 24. The driver backed by Auto Test has Oliver Allwood alongside him, the AB Motorsport run car. Oh, there's a car off, I think, there in the background at Beckett's. Perhaps we'll pick that up in a moment. But here come the leading pack. Absolutely manic. 3 wide here. And Matt Pollard's trying to gain 2 positions in one go. He's on the inside line in 55. He's got past Oliver Graham. He's trying to get Oliver Allwood too. He's going to slot in behind his teammate, but ahead of Oliver Graham. So that works well for him. Steve Foden, the leader, he's had half a second of a lead. I think it's going out to Brian Trott. He's starting to break the toe. Sebastian Fisher might be about to lose third because Oliver Allwood's on the inside line through Woodcote Corner, and he goes through then into third. And following him is Matt Pollard, his teammate. It was 45 that went off at Beckett's. That was Graham Rumsey. He's going to rejoin though. Into Copse. There's Fisher, 81. He managed to stay ahead of Matt Pollard. But he was passed by Oliver Allwood. So this is 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th, which Sebastian Fisher is in there too. He's in 4th. So Allwood's 3rd, 4th is Fisher, 5th is Pollard, 6th is Graham. They turned through Beckett's. So Fisher was passed by Allwood but not Pollard, and then Oliver Graham on the back of their train. And just behind, Luke Pullen has got himself back ahead of Fraser Fenwick, who again isn't going as well as he went in race 1 of the weekend. Callum Greatrex is 9th and Kevin Dengate 10th. There's the leader, Steve Foden 2nd, Brian Trott 8 tenths behind now. Oliver Allwood 3rd, and again Matt Pollard trying to gain positions on the inside line into the left-handed corner at Brooklands, and he goes through then ahead of Fisher. He made it work, so he's into 4th, and he can latch onto the back of his teammate Oliver Allwood. We had another off at Beckett's. That was 53, Jonathan Fieldsend. He will rejoin. So there's the 6th place car of Oliver Graham, who comes up across the line, but it's Steve Foden that leads by a reduced margin because Brian Trott's just set the fastest lap of the race at 76.560 for 4th. Sebastian Fisher trying to get back down the inside of Matt Pollard. Couldn't do it though, was very sideways on the apex to the corner. Look at the battles though further back. Wherever you are in the field, you're going to have somebody to race against. The beauty of having such a big category of car, big number of entries in the category. There's the Car Magic liveried car of Matt Pollard, who sits in 4th position here in the 55 AB Motorsport car, following his teammate Oliver Allwood. They're a couple of seconds behind the leader, which is Steve Foden, who's under pressure here from Brian Trott. He's so close to the back of Foden you can't see him. I'm not sure if Trott might just touch the back of Foden's car there as they went into the braking zone, because you saw a big jolt in the cockpit for Foden. Anyway, they stay in the same order with Foden still in front. This is lap 5. It's a 20-minute race. And they come out of Luffield with this clear margin over a much bigger pack behind. They turn their way then through Woodcote to complete lap 5 with Foden ahead, but only just of Brian Trott, who sits right in the toe, heading down towards Copse Corner for 3rd. Matt Pollard all over the back of Oliver Allwood, and he's just set the fastest lap of the race at 76.504. So it's 55 there, fastest lap of the race, and these two are catching the leaders. It's now 1.5 seconds to them. So there's Foden, the leader, still being tracked by Brian Trott, and then this big gaggle of cars behind. Fraser Fenwick, race 1 winner, coming under pressure from Callum Greatrex, who's having a much better run here in the Red Line Racing car. Or the Red Line Motorsport car, I should say. They head down the Wellington Straight, down towards Brooklands. Where's Brian Trott going to challenge? Is he just happy to sit behind him at this stage? Allwood 3rd, 4th is Pollard as they turn into Brooklands. See Allwood there working at the wheel, getting the car into Brooklands. Everybody was saying how tricky the conditions have been throughout today. We're kind of getting back to the same type of conditions we had at the start of proceedings. So 3rd and 4th have broke away from Sebastian Fisher, who's there in 5th place, ahead of Oliver Graham. They've both been caught by Luke Pullen in 27. They come up across the line. 3 tenths of a second separate the top two, but they continue to be caught by the next two, who were 2 seconds behind, then 1.5 seconds. Now it's just a second between Brian Trott and Oliver Allwood. We're going to get 4 cars into this lead battle. Oliver Graham there in 6th, out over the curb sideways. That's not a new feature of the race. Looks like car 5's had an issue at Luffield. That was Nick Ledoyen, who's dropping down the order. He was 25th, but much further down the pack now. There's Luke Pullen trying to progress in 27. Again, lots of road being used on the exit of Beckett's Corner, the hairpin. Down towards Brooklands. Again, Trott so close to the back of Foden, you can hardly see his car. His 2 teammates are getting closer, Oliver Allwood and Matt Pollard. Then Sebastian Fisher is 5th, ahead of Oliver Graham and Luke Pullen. Those positions haven't changed. You can see the top 20 on your screen now. Zach Oates did get out there, it would seem, so he's 16th, but not going as well as earlier. With Jack Brewer not progressing either in 145. So across the line they come then to complete 7 laps of this race. We've had almost half of it now. There's Fisher and Graham, 5th and 6th positions. They're a second behind the leading group, and we're going to get a bit of lappery by the looks of things. That's the car that had the problems earlier, isn't it? Graham Rumsey, who had a spin, so he's going to get lapped shortly. Got 9 cars all in one shot there. Foden, Trott, Allwood, Pollard, Fisher, Graham, Pullin and Fraser Fenwick and Callum Greatrex are top 9, separated by 5 seconds as they head on to the Wellington Straight for the 8th time in this race. We're at half distance now, so it'll be something like a 16 lap race again, all being well. Not quite as manic at the moment as the earlier races, but it could all kick off in the second half. So here's Allwood and Pollard into Luffield. Now how's that back marker traffic going to go for the leaders? Well, he keeps to the right hand side of the circuit so they can move around the outside of him with Steve Foden's good pace, meaning not so many cars in the leading group. There's Kevin Dengate, he's 10th in 178 all by himself, just ahead of Jason Greatrex and Adam Craig, who's 12th. Then the next group, there's 4 of them being headed by Sam Moody in 544. You've got Stuart Simmons in 8, 4 Paul Bateman, and then Zach Oates the last of that group. Then Jack Brewer a gap back in 17th, and he led a whole host of cars through there. The back marker there, Graham Rumsey waves through the leading cars. The top 4 separated by a second now. The fastest lap has just gone to Oliver Allwood, the 3rd place car number 63, has done a 76.472 to latch onto the back of the 2 leaders, and he's brought Matt Pollard with him. Onto the Wellington Straight they go. This is lap 9 into the second half of the race now. Foden hasn't come under a proper challenge yet from Brian Trott, who up to now has been quite content with just following the leader. Change for 5th here. 24 has gone through. Oliver Graham has got ahead of Sebastian Fisher. There's the top 4 into Brooklands, passing the spectator section of track there. So spectators back to Silverstone for the first time in the last month or so for quite a while, and hope they're enjoying this BRSCC race weekend. I'm sure they are. Despite perhaps not the most pleasant of conditions to stand out in. 42 will be the next car to be lapped. That's Toby Owen. I think he's been lapped in the other 2 races too. Here's Foden leading into Copse. This is lap 10, with the top 4 now separated by a smaller and smaller margin on every lap. So the tow bringing everybody together, and as the race gets into the business end of the race, people will be looking to make moves, I'm sure. So 77 Foden, 83 is Trott, 63 Allwood and 55 Pollard turn their way into Beckett's and head off down the Wellington Straight once more. So you've got Steve Foden's a car that runs with his dad with some help from Michael Comber Racing. The Rock Oil sponsored car leads the way from the 3 Ali Bray Motorsport cars. I'm sure will be keen to beat him. And to the outside, the first challenge of the race from Brian Trott. He tries to take the wide line through Brooklands, and that'll give him the inside line for Luffield, and he's going to take the lead. And how many of his teammates are going to follow him? Well, Oliver Allwood's right on his wheel tracks. Foden's trying to hang on around the outside, trying to find the grip there. How much room is Brian Trott going to give him? Not a lot is the answer. So Foden finds a couple of his tyres tracking through the gravel, which loses him momentum and allows Oliver Allwood to follow Brian Trott through. And Matt Pollard, the 4th of those cars, will be keen to do similar. Down to Copse then, new leader Brian Trott hasn't won a race yet. How long is he going to hold the lead? Not very long is the answer, because Oliver Allwood chucked it down the inside into Copse. He said it would get a bit more busy up front. Now we got 4 cars and with limited time to go, something like 6 laps. Into Maggots they come, a couple of cars to lap before the end, and it's Oliver Allwood that leads. Brian Trott led for about 1 corner. 42 gets one out of the way, Toby Owen in the Eco Motorsport car. Top 4 tied together. They were separated by less than half a second at the line after 10 laps. This is lap 11 down the Wellington Straight. 53 is the next car to be passed. That's Jonathan Field's end. And here comes Trott back down the inside of Oliver Allwood, and he's going to retake the lead. Steve Foden's trying to follow him. Let's see if he can make it. He's taking a much tighter line. It hasn't worked for him. Is that going to give Matt Pollard a chance into Luffield? I don't think so. He slots in behind. I wonder if Oliver Graham and Sebastian Fisher and Luke Pullin can catch too. They're not far behind, particularly Oliver Graham, who seems to have got away. Luke Pullin's actually fallen back, so I think he'll struggle to catch them. As we've got 6 minutes to go. The 2 teammates then turn their way out of Woodcote. There may be teammates, but it's all for their own as they race their way down towards Copse Corner, separated by less than a tenth of a second. Now Brian Trott comes keeps ahead, I should say, of Oliver Allwood. He took a defensive line. He knew that Allwood passed him there a lap ago. So you can see the top 20 positions on your screen. One car to note, great progress from Aston Wigley from the back of the grid. He's up to 17th, so he's passed more than half of his competitors. Into Beckett's, and a big progress from in the last lap from the 5th place car from Oliver Graham. He's pretty much caught the lead in 4, and Sebastian Fischer's going with him. So we could have 6 for the lead in the final quarter of this race. The 2 back markers have been passed now by the leaders, and Brian Trott's under further pressure from Oliver Allwood, who looks down the outside. Not sure if that's going to be successful. What about behind? Matt Pollard looked to the inside of Foden. That didn't work either, so they stay in the same order. They turn right through Luffield with 4 laps of the race to go. So Oliver Allwood tracking the leader, Brian Trott, with Steve Foden, who's got a really good run here, so I think we might see a challenge into Copse Corner. Who's going to be able to progress? Dive into the inside comes Oliver Allwood. To the outside comes Steve Foden. It's 3 abreast as they turn their way into Copse Corner. Foden backs out of it. Oliver Allwood takes the lead on the inside line. So new race leader Allwood. Now Foden realises he carries more speed through Copse. He might be able to pass Brian Trott as well. Graham and Fisher are there now, so 6 cars separated by just a couple of seconds as they turn their way into Maggots with new leader Allwood side by side for second. Foden and Trott. Brian Trott on the inside. On the outside is Steve Foden. And 83, Brian Trott stays in front for now. Much tighter line there, taken by Matt Pollard. He's looking to get himself alongside Steve Foden. So one long line of MX-5s. They will fan out when they get to the end of the straight, and Brian Trott comes to the inside of Oliver Allwood to retake the lead. So that's 2 changes within a lap. Around the outside comes Oliver Graham to try and grab 4th. Runs very wide. Steve Foden's coming alongside Oliver Allwood for second. He'll take the outside line. He's sideways. He's got second though, and he's trying to get the lead as well off of Brian Trott. Will he get second? That'll be a job well done. He's out over the curbs, but he's still got the speed, and he might well get the lead yet out of this because he's got better momentum. He's alongside Brian Trott, so he's gone round the outside of Oliver Allwood, and now he's alongside the leader, but Allwood fights back to make it 3 abreast, much like it was a lap ago, but even closer this time as they come into Copse Corner. It's Trott that's backed out of it, and round the outside to take the lead of the race goes Steve Foden, so he takes the lead once more ahead of Oliver Allwood, and Oliver Graham have his best race of the weekend, comes third. Brian Trott, who was leading across the he's dropped to at least 4th position on the exit of Copse Corner. Make that 5th because Matt Pollard's coming down the inside of him, and Pollard's trying to gain more places on that inside line. It's Foden though that leads, who started from pole. Graham's out over the dirt, so that's not going to help him after just taking 3rd position. I think Pollard has got himself ahead of Brian Trott, so Brian Trott fell as low as 5th, but he might be able to progress further. There's 2 laps to go at the end of this one. It's Steve Foden that leads. Oliver Graham, that wide line didn't hurt him. He's now on the inside of Allwood to take 2nd position, or to try to at least. He's taking a much tighter line. He's sideways through the middle of the corner. It didn't work. Allwood stayed in front. Steve Foden leads then through the right-handed corner at Luffield. 2 laps of this race to go. Wide line for the leader, but it worked a lap ago. That's how he got the lead, really. Behind, Brian Trott's got back to 3rd, so he's had a busy lap. He was 1st, then 5th, now back to 3rd. Matt Pollard's coming back round the outside of Oliver Graham, who again had quite a busy lap, working his way through the order. And then back again. So across the line they come, then turning away into Copse Corner. The top 6 cars separated by just 1.4 seconds with 2 laps to go. Steve Foden leading from Oliver Allwood, Brian Trott, Matt Pollard, Oliver Graham, Sebastian Fischer. Are they still in that order? Kind of. The 4th and 5th place cars are side by side. To the outside of Matt Pollard comes Oliver Graham, who was looking for a podium a moment ago, but he slipped back just a bit. And then Sebastian Fischer keeping a watching brief in 6th. Behind, Luke Pullin and Fraser Fenwick battled for 7th. 9th is Callum Greatrex. Zach Oates has progressed through to 10th. Blue flags for the back marker there. 78, which is Richard Bartlett. That kind of helped Steve Foden though, because it meant he got a toe off another car. There's 1 lap to go though, so it's far from all over yet. Into Luffield. Steve Foden has what, about half a car length, maybe a car length advantage, but that will disappear in the draft for Allwood as they come their way then through Woodcote for the penultimate time. They see the last lap board being held out by the start line marshal. There it is. So they come down towards Copse Corner with Steve Foden defending from Oliver Allwood, who was trying to find a way through into Copse Corner. So they work their way down towards Beckett's. Where is Allwood going to challenge? Brooklands is the most obvious position of the track. You'd think Brian Trott's caught right back up to them. Foden, a smidge of a bigger lead, possibly, as they turn their way through the right-handed Beckett's corner. You can see Foden working at the wheel there. Trott's coming up alongside Allwood. So they're side by side. Who's going to get the draft off of Steve Foden? Because that should be beneficial for whomever gets it. They're not quite going to catch that back mark, I wouldn't think. Here comes Oliver Graham trying to pass everybody up the inside. He was fifth at the start of the lap. He's backed out of it in the end. That was perhaps a little bit too ambitious. They're almost free wide in the middle there, but Steve Foden still leads. He's been waiting for a win in the BRSCC Mazda MX-5 Championship. He managed to get it earlier on today. Is he going to get a second win? Because they're all scrapping behind, with Oliver Allwood just hanging on ahead. But it is going to be Steve Foden then to take the win of the race, and this is going to put him really in a good championship position heading away from Silverstone. 2 wins in a day then for Foden. For second, it was a whole load of cars headed by Oliver Allwood. Third was Brian Trott. Fourth for Matt Pollard. Fifth for Oliver Graham. Sixth for Sebastian Fisher. The top 5 cars were separated by less than a second. Seventh went to Luke Pullin. He beat Fraser Fenwick. In ninth was Callum Graytrex. A bit further back in 10th, Zach Oates. 11th position for Adam Craig. Then Jason Graytrex was 12th. Kevin Dengate 13th. 14th Stuart Simmons. 15th for Sam Moody. 16th Paul Bateman. 17th from the back of the grid for Aston Wigley. In 18th, bad day for Jack Brewer. 19th for Kean Donaldson. And completing the top 20 was the car of George King. And the rest of the field stream across the line. So 3 good races from the BRSCC Mazda MX-5 Championship. And a win for Steve Foden for the second time today. Let's take a look at the highlights of the 6th round of the BRSCC Mazda MX-5 Championship. So this huge grid of cars got away then with Steve Foden from pole position, with Brian Trott alongside, and that's how they headed into Beckett's. Much less spray than the earlier race. That helped visibility. Oliver Graham had a really nice run. He was right amongst the battlers in the lead pack. He actually set the fastest lap on the final lap of the race. Matt Pollard was involved, so was Oliver Allwood. Foden and Trott made the break early on, working together. But then Oliver Allwood and Matt Pollard towed their way up to the leaders. So then Brian Trott got racy, went round the outside of Steve Foden, and the wide line worked for him, and he got down the inside to take the lead. Oliver Allwood would follow him through with Steve Foden run out wide on the exit of Luffield, but that wasn't it for him. He could challenge back. Allwood and Trott went side by side through Copse with Foden and Pollard behind. They were all joined by Oliver Graham and Sebastian Fisher to make it a 6-car battle. We had 3 wide into Copse Corner on a couple of occasions. This one saw Graham and Trott with Foden on the outside line getting good speed. Here was one of Graham's moves round the outside, but it was this brilliant double pass by Steve Foden. He went right round the outside of not just Oliver Allwood, but Brian Trott too. He started the move at Luffield, completed it at Copse with Oliver Graham momentarily making his way up to 3rd position. The best we've seen him go in one of these races. He dropped back though, but it was Steve Foden that took his 2nd win of the day, and he will be with Scott Woodward down in the pit lane.
Excellent and frantic way to end the racing action for the BRSCC Mazda MX-5 Championship, and 3 very worthy podium finishes, all having conversations. And of course, again, we have to talk about the fact that Steve Foden has not only picked up his 1st win this weekend, he's picked up his 2nd, and I think it's, again, something he's been really looking forward to. He's going to pick up his winner's hat, and also 2 AB Motorsport cars on the podium as well. And it is Father's Day after all, so he embraces his father Ian. I know it's been a big part of him getting into racing, and certainly he's really enjoyed today, and he's very proud, of course, of everything he's achieved and everything, of course, they've achieved together. Let's bring him over, Steve. Well, I think it's an age-old saying, but if there's ever an apt one, it's time to say, this weekend's been a bit like buses, isn't it? You wait for several years for that 1st win to come, and 2 come along at once on one weekend.
Yeah, I don't know what to say, honestly. I'm again lost for words, Scott, I really am. it was a difficult race. Obviously, we had the red flag in the Formula 4s beforehand, and I could see the track was drying. And again, we went on a full wet setup, and we were kind of hoping it'd work. I went out for the green flag up, and I was thinking, this is going to be tricky if I can get in the lead. So I managed to pull a gap at the start of the race, and Brian was working together with me to try and break away from the others. And my pace just fell off, particularly through Brooklands towards like the back end of the race, and they managed to catch us. Brian got past us a few times. Ollie was past us. I was down to third at one point. Absolutely fantastic race, really clean racing from the AB boys. It's been a mega weekend, mega end to a good weekend. Yeah.
Of course, now with the first two wins under your belt, how much more confidence does it give you now in the car, your abilities, and also your chances now that you can start to think about mounting a challenge for the championship?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a long time coming, as you say, for this first win. I mean, it's a similar position to what Jack was in last weekend at Croft, and he's gone away and he's come back and put it on pole again. He's had the 3 wins, and his confidence when I saw him on Friday, you could see he was really right up and ready to go. So we're going to try and just carry that momentum forward into the rest of the season and see where we can end up.
So next time out, you have more the same, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. yeah. No, and obviously we want more wins, but I think over the years we've learned points make prizes. So at the end of the day, you've just got to rack up the points and see where you end up at the end of the year.
Yeah, you got the taste for it now.
Yeah, well, I know it's. I like to think we've had a pace for a while, but it's more been it's been a mental thing for me more than anything to kind of break into that top group. So I'm really happy that I'm finally there, and hopefully we can stay there now.
I know a lot of people are happy to see it happen, so well done, much deserved. Go and celebrate. We'll see you next time.
Thank you very much, Scott. Cheers, guys.
Good stuff. Right, let's bring in second place man Ollie Allwood, who takes his 3rd podium of the season. It's nice to see you back on the rostrum again. I know you keep chasing these guys to pick up the victory, but again, it's solid points nonetheless.
Yeah, points mean surprises. 2 fourths and a second today. I'm pretty happy with that, to be honest. It's really hard out there. The conditions are really tough. It's constantly changing for us as well, the balance of the car, and it comes and goes to you. So it's a challenge for the lead on the last lap. Steve drove amazing and really well today. He's had 2 wins. He deserves them both. And going into turn 1 of that last lap, so close. But kudos to him. He really hung on to it and drove a great race. So yeah, happy with second place, pick up some points, move on to the next round.
And that's the key thing, isn't it, of course, because if we have weekends where there's so many different winners throughout the season, it's those that can stay in those top places the most often that will benefit the most.
Well, yeah, I'm hoping so.
That's the plan anyway.
That's my plan, yeah.
Good stuff.
I just wanted to say quick thanks to my dad. It's Father's Day. So happy Father's Day, Dad. Thanks for everything you do. I wouldn't be here without you.
Excellent. And second place to reward him as well. So well done. Go and enjoy it. We'll see you next time.
Top stuff. Cheers.
Good stuff. And let's bring in Brian for 3rd place. 3rd time on the podium. Wasn't quite the hat-trick of second places, but still, it's the 3rd place, and as we keep saying, more strong points. So overall, you've got to be happy with that.
I am. I'm the only driver to make all 3 podiums today, so I can't complain on that score. Steve and I got away a little bit at the start, and I was trying to just stay in the tow with him and see if we could make a gap, but it wasn't quite enough. Then they came back on us, and then I just got, I think, both. I had a little bit of time in the lead, but on the front straight, they both came past me one side and the other, which can happen here. You just have to take your medicine around here. And it was close all the way till the end. But I'm extremely happy with how the weekend's gone. The cars run faultlessly. Big thanks to AB Motorsport there and Team Trot. And we'll go again next time. But I'm happy to be back where I think I should be.
It was a typically close, competitive, really hard-fought weekend of 3 races. Just what the championship's all about.
Yeah, exactly. And it's close in normal times, but we always here have just a lottery of who's going to be on the podium, and it was no different today. All 3 could have been completely different results, but to be in the mix in each one, obviously I'm very, very happy.
So again, go and enjoy it, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.